I can. Hey everyone, welcome to today's webinar. We're in part 2 of our 3-part series of webinars where we're focusing a little bit more on helping, residential electrical contractors and, also commercial and other electrical contractors hone their knowledge and kind of build the tools that they need to jump into the commercial industry or to maybe do a little better, improve what they're doing in the commercial construction industry. And so today, I think we're our third part's going to be fairly early in June, so look for that as well. And go ahead and jump to the next one. And first, I wanted to talk a little bit about the platform. Most of you are probably on our YouTube live page, and you can chat off to the right there if you're logged into the system, and we'll try to answer any questions you might have. Otherwise, sit back and enjoy the show. And I have Brian Hoffelder here with us, and he manages our training. So if you have training with us for any Vision InfoSoft software, like Electrical Bid Manager, our estimating software, Brian will be the guy training you. So he also helps with the development of our software. He's tremendous help here at Vision. Thank you, Brian. Anyways, Brian, do you want to take it over?
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to mention at the beginning here is one of the reasons for this 3-part webinar is had been thinking, I train a lot of people who are getting into the commercial market, and a lot of the time they have a lot of commercial experience, but when they get into the commercial market, especially if they're just starting out, they end up doing a lot of residential work. And then they kind of get stuck and say, well, how do I get into the commercial work? Because that's really what I want to do. It's the kind of work that I know I'm best at. And I know that's the kind of work I can make more money at. And, how do I make that transition? So I wanted to try to put together some some tips, some topics to think about, some things to kind of change and be aware of your mindset as far as getting into that. And I train people that are kind of at all different aspects of that. It could be commercial electrical estimators who've made that transition and now they're running a company with 20, 30, or 130 employees. But a lot of them came through that transition from residential to commercial work. So I wanted to, again, try to put together some tips on things that are going to be coming up as you try to make that transition, or even if you've made that transition, where you might want to think back as far as what things are important to getting a commercial estimating, commercial electrical contracting business going. And one of the reasons people come to us, because that's one of the biggest things you really have to change your approach on, is you have to have a viable estimating system to do commercial estimating. You just can't bid it by the square foot. You can't bid it unit pricing, X dollars per outlet. That works okay on residential work because the jobs are smaller and because you've got the experience. If you've done a 2,000 square foot house and now you're doing a 2,200 square foot house, that you can adjust the pricing accordingly. Or if you've got prices that have been using for a few years, you can just kind of adjust them accordingly for inflation and that kind of thing. But commercial estimating is a whole different thing. You really need to take on a different mindset and commit to making legitimate estimates with complete uh, complete takeoff of all your materials and labor that you need for the job. So this is our part 2. At the end, I'll bring up what we're going to do on part 3 and the date for that. But again, it's an understanding of the commercial market. It's a different market. If you were just working for electrical contractor, you probably just saw one side of it, more of the production side maybe than the business side. But now if you're running the business, it's a little bit different than if you were just working as an estimator or a project manager. So now you got to think about the competition. Who are you competing against? If you go to bid a job and there's 2 competitors, or you go to bid a job and there's 20 competitors, that makes a big difference. And it's not always easy to get a handle on that, but you really need to be thinking about it and finding out as much as possible the level of competitiveness you're going to have on the job. That's going to make a big impact on your chance of success, obviously, and whether you want to continue to put resources into that. Identifying the key players again, that's not always easy, but as you drive around town and you go to different job sites and you see the trucks of the different electrical contractors. In the old days, and still sometimes on the bigger jobs, the electrical contractor will actually put a sign on the job. They want everybody to know that they're doing the electrical on a big project. But if nothing else, you'll see the trucks driving around of your competitors, and when they're at jobs that you're working on or job sites you're working on, you can just um, make notes of who your competitors are. The other resource you have is your suppliers. They'll tell you who else is bidding the job usually. They're usually pretty open with that information. And then the general contractors you bid to. Just working with an electrical contractor earlier this week here down in the Palm Springs area, and one of the guys I was working with had experience on the general contractor side, so he knew how to reach out and find out from the general contractor how the bid looked and who his competitors were, how many they were. He even got the name of the electrical contractor who was the apparent low bidder at that point. So again, more so than residential work, the importance of getting feedback on your unsuccessful bids is really important. It's great when you win the bid and you go to work and start making some money, but you want to pay attention to those bid results. Again, you want to be looking for how many people you're bidding against. You want to know how close you were to the winning bid. Those kind of things are going to affect your strategy. It might cause you to want to adjust your markup. It might cause you to want to stay away from certain types of jobs, or the other end of it may give you some inkling of which jobs are more you're going to be more competitive on. Everybody's going to find a niche. Might be small, difficult jobs. It might be the larger jobs where you've got a good crew you can put out there and be productive, but you need that feedback to know if you're even in the ballpark on your bid. And I've already mentioned that the number of bidders per project, that's a big factor. Um, you don't want to be bidding against 10 people if you can find jobs that you're bidding against 2 or 3. And that's one of the downsides of the media these days is you can get requests to bid or go to sites that have lists of jobs to bid, but you might be bidding against a whole slew of other people. That's not the place you want to be. Now you might have to do that to get your foot in the door, and then you might start getting invitations from some of those people that uh, bid the same kinds of jobs, but they don't put them out there for the general public to bid on. So there is kind of an investment you may have to make again when you're getting in the commercial market. You may just have to go bid some jobs, see where your bids are. Are you close to the winning bid? Are you getting some bids? If you bid 10 jobs and you get 2 or 1, that's not very good. If you bid 10 jobs and maybe you're getting 3 or 4, then maybe it's a good idea, good sign you're on the right path there.
Is that the kind of a comparison between using like a plan room service
Plan,
versus?
yeah, plan room service would again be something that's available to the general public. And there's
Mhm.
other, a lot of people I deal with, they get bid requests all the time. They may get a
Right.
bid request for a dozen jobs a week. Now that doesn't mean that they're really anxious to get your bid. They just want to get as much coverage as they can. And sometimes, again, general contractors are using your bid to keep their other bidders competitive. And you can't, you know, I'm sure all of you know that you can't trust all of the feedback you get from a general contractor. He may tell you you're 10% high when you're really you might be even lower than the lowest bid he has. They're gonna play that game. You got to be aware of it. But as much as you can get that information, you can filter through it, and you'll learn over time who's giving you honest and accurate feedback. So that's why building this relationship with the general contractors is important. Actually, one of the guys I was training last week or this week had a lot of experience working for a general contractor, and that was one of the things that was the reason they hired this guy. Was he had worked with general contractors and kind of knew the lay of the land there. And again, if you've been in residential, doing when you start get in, when you make that transition and start your own business and doing residential, you won't have the same kind of general contractors you're working with maybe large companies. A lot of these large general contractors hire people just to put together bids, just to run the projects. Um, they're they're much more general in their knowledge, but you've got to get to them and know, get on their good side, so to speak, if you want to get your foot in the door. I guess that's really kind of one of the biggest things. Again, I think that's a transition when you're going from having worked in the field as a commercial electrician. You start your own business, you're doing residential, and now you're trying to get into the commercial market. It's going to be a whole different world of building different business relationships. You got to be able to put out accurate bids as quickly as possible, and you've got to, but you have to be able to do them in a legitimate, thorough manner, not just bidding at X dollars an outlet or X dollars a foot. So the other side of the thing is, again, you're going to have to keep in mind as you go into the commercial market more than the residential market, is you're going to need to build a line of credit with your suppliers, because you're going to need to buy materials and not have to pay for them, as you pick them up all the time. That may be impossible. So you need to start building a line of credit with suppliers, not just relying on cash purchases. I guess you can build a line of credit even with Home Depot, but that's not going to do it for a lot of the commercial jobs. You're going to need at least 2 or 3 electrical wholesalers that you've got a line of credit with, you've got contacts with, people that can quote you on the material, like the lighting and the gear. So it's not just a line of credit with suppliers, it's also relationships with the people at the supply houses who can provide you with pricing on your specialty, your quoted materials. Cash flow for payroll is critical. Absolutely, day one when you start hiring people. Again, if you're just you and a helper, it's a little bit different. You can hold back on getting your pay for maybe a few weeks at a time. Got to pay your employees. So if you're starting to build a crew of even half a dozen electricians, meeting those payroll expenses is absolutely the first thing you gotta do before you open the door every day, is make sure that you can meet the payroll. And again, if you haven't been in business, you've probably never been exposed to that. Again, I grew up in an electrical contracting business. My dad was an electrical contractor, and as much as I was around the business, that's always the first thing. Do we have enough cash in the bank to make payroll? So that's the first order of business when you're running your own business. And in the commercial world, more so, again, you may be facing delayed payments. In the laws and the lien laws and the payment laws vary from state to state, but they can hold your payments, and they can hold what they call retention. So your contractor, the general contractor may say, well, I'm going to pay you 90% of the job, but we're going to hold back 10% for retention until whatever. It may be until you complete all of the punch list items of little things that need to be done. It may be until they get paid. The retention is something they can hold back, and that could be that may be all your profit. So it seems kind of unfair, but it's not uncommon for the general contractor to hold back a certain percentage of the job. Now, I know here in California they have lien laws that protect the subcontractors in the residential and the commercial market. So that helps, but it's still a legal process you have to go through. Even if you file a lien on the project, they're still going to have time to respond to that, and you may have to make up for the cash flow in the meantime, because you got to pay your employees, and at some point you got to pay your suppliers and all of your overhead. Already mentioned securing a line of credit with suppliers. That's going to help with risking the management of the cash flow. For payroll, again, didn't we just do this? I guess those slides are kind of repetitive. I apologize. Yeah, they really are.
Well, it's risk management. Yeah, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah, they kind of fall under the same umbrella. We are going to be doing a third webinar. That'll be June 6th. Kind of same time and same place. You'll be getting an email, or you can register for it now by logging into our. Can they register for that on the website, Eric?
Yeah, but not yet. There'll be an email that goes out, and
right.
If you're on YouTube, we have it up already. So you could go to our live section on our website, and I think there's like a remind button or something that you can do that YouTube will remind you. I'm double checking real quick.
You can also, go to our website at any point and get our contact information, and either send us an email or give us a call, and we'll get you on the list for the next webinar.
Yeah, do you recall the subject of the next webinar? I can't off the top of my head.
I've got that here. So this gets more into the marketing and sales strategies. How do you generate bid opportunities, building your online presence? That's something Derek will really be able to help us with. He's our wizard of digital media, etc. And a little bit more about how to break into the market as far as what size and types of jobs you may want to initially bid.
You talk. I don't know if we should circle back on it or not, but
Sure.
I just seen something about the plan room services, and it seems like a mixed bag. Like there's a few out there that are kind of national, and then there's more regional or local services. And from what I've seen through message boards of electrical estimators talking about these things across the U.S., that some love it and they get great jobs from it, and others they said it's zero value, like it's just
Yeah.
noise. But
And I think a little bit of both is probably true. I remember another contractor I worked with recently in Phoenix, and he was just getting started. It was literally him and I think a helper, and he had a few other electricians that were available for him to hire, but they weren't on his payroll yet, and he would pretty much bid anything that he could get his hands on. Medium and actually some pretty large projects, and he actually landed a couple of them, so he's off and running. And sometimes that's all you need is a couple of medium to larger projects that you can get win the bid on, and that can actually just launch your whole business.
yeah, and then I don't know if this pertains specifically, but I see a lot of talk about estimators in the commercial area, especially setting benchmarks for the amount of dollars they estimate per month and then year. Like they have goals, whether it's
Yep.
set by their company or they kind of put it on themselves to help.
I think that would be I think that would normally be set by the company, but something you have to work out if you're working for a company and you're doing the estimating. But if it's now your company and you're managing the estimating, you kind of have to have an idea of how many jobs and how much work you're going to have to estimate to get the amount of work you'd like to do. But I
It's
know
probably
there's just a
similar,
huge amount of potential out there. Yeah.
similar to
I can't tell
residential. I
you
mean,
how
it's
many.
similar to everything, right? Sorry, Brian.
It's all right. I can't tell you how many people I've trained over the years who have started out, on their own, and they get to the point where they've got 5 and 10 employees, and they're all of a sudden making really good money. You don't have to be a 50 employee or 150 employee company to make a very good profit. Sometimes it actually goes the other direction. You get too big and you lose a handle on things. I I know just a whole lot of people out there, 5 to 10 employee range to there. There's probably a sweet spot where you can really make some good money because you're not competing with the 150 man shops, and you're also not competing with the one man electrician who operates out of his pickup truck. So I think there's a really nice sweet spot, but to get to that point, you've got to be able to do good commercial estimates quickly and accurately. You've got to have confidence in your bids that your numbers are accurate and competitive. Doesn't mean you'll win every bid by any means, but it means if you put out a few more bids, you're eventually going to get some good work.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So actually, this screen that you're showing right now, there's right below our logo, right below the subscribe button
Yep.
animation, is a live tab there. If you click on the live tab, you'll see this pretty much what you see right here. And that the one highlighted with the red box. If you click on that, I believe then it gives you the opportunity to notify me is the button that you see. It's in 20 days. All right.
if you are interested in, training on estimating, that's what I do most of the time with them. If I'm not working with Derek on one of our development projects, but I train people that are brand new, people that are real experienced, and a lot of people in between. We offer online classes, which are really kind of neat. We do an introductory class and an advanced class once a month. Again, you can check our website for those. Those are online classrooms. Um, we also do a lot of one-on-one training, either for new customers. Typically those are 2-hour sessions. If you're a new customer, we'll just concentrate on getting you up to speed. If you're an existing customer and just need some more practice, we can actually do a bid together. And then I also do a lot of on-site training. That's what I was doing again earlier this week. I do probably 2 or 3 of those a month, where I go to the customer's office for a couple days and work with their estimators and get them up to speed and handle anything they need to customize or address that's unique to their business.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye now.
we'll see you.